All right, guys. So, what I kind of want to talk about today is just the plugins that I actually use. Many of you guys know that I typically used to always use my PC to make beats, and then I recorded audio into my MacBook, and I do my editings off my MacBook and everything. But sometime last year, my power cord broke in my computer. I don't think that it's worth paying $150 for that power cord, so I use a makeshift cord, and it doesn't allow me to use all my plugins at full strength. So it only allows me to get a couple of plugins on, and then it just everything on my computer freezes up. So I switched over to my MacBook, and as I switched over to my MacBook, I didn't download all the plugins that I used to use before. So what I did was I basically just took some of the plugins that I really used, and then kind of some of the plugins that I've been using now. So as I pull my plugin list up here, you're going to see that I have a whole bunch of different plugins. Let me get FL Studio up here real quick. And then we'll just start with some sound ones. I don't have everything pulled up. I just have some stuff pulled up. Um, but I'm gonna go through more as we do this video. All right. So obviously, most of you guys know what my GOAT plugin is. The plugin that I use all the time. I stand firm on this plugin. It's Omnisphere. I don't care what nobody says to me. Omnisphere is fire. A lot of people complain about there's too many sounds that aren't hip hop sounds, or there's too many sounds that aren't R&B sounds, or there's too many whatever. You can drop one shots in this. You can do multis. This thing is good for all genres. So I use this probably the most of all my plugins still to this day. I use this on like almost every beat y'all hear. Something in Omnisphere gets put in most beats that I make. So for me, I still think that this is one of my favorite plugins, and this is something that I always will use. So as we keep going, let me show you guys my plugin list. So you guys already know I have a bunch of plugins. You know what I'm saying? Like I got a ton of plugins. So this is just what I have on this computer right now, though. So before, I probably had 5 times as many plugins as this on my other computer. And then for effects, my effects kind of look like, get this mixer up. My effects kind of look like this. So this is like what my effects look like on my computer. And as you can see here, I have a ton of different effects. But before it was probably 5 times bigger than this too as well. So of all these plugins that I've decided to download again, or the plugins that I use, some of these plugins were already on the computer. And then when I switched over to the MacBook, once I switched over to the MacBook, I didn't take them off, you know. So let's go ahead and get back over here to this list. The next plugin that I use a lot, it's going to be UVI Falcon. So I use Falcon all the time, and I actually use Mosaic all the time. So this just came out recently, but I've been using this in a lot of the beats that I've been making recently because it's just really easy to get good ARPs. And like I always tell you guys with the beats that I make, I like to have a bunch of ARPs in my videos. You know what I'm saying? So I like to have ARPs in everything. It's just how I get down. It's just how I roll. I just think that they thicken out whatever sound, pause, or whatever it is that you're doing. So Falcon for me is fire because you've got so much with Falcon, so many different sound packs. You can do whatever you want to. Going through Falcon is so fire because like the effects that you get are all UVI's effects. Like the events and the modulations and all the stuff that you can do is fire. I use Analog Labs V a lot, so it's just easy to get this plugin and then just type in whatever you're looking for. It's got sounds for every genre. So if I'm making a house beat or something like this, I typically will use Analog Lab V. It's got all these other plugins in it that you see. So really it's the V collection that I would recommend getting if you did decide to get like a group of plugins, because ultimately you're going to get a lot of good stuff, you know? So like I use, let's go ahead and show all these. So of all these plugins here, we'll just do it like this, fuck it. Let me pull these things over here too. Sorry, I normally have my camera on the other side. I normally, of these plugins, I use like augmented strings, augmented brass, augmented piano, augmented voices, augmented Yangtze, augmented woodwinds. I use all the stuff in the augmented series. I also use the clavinet. Sometimes I use the CMI. I use the DX7. I use the Emulator 2. I use the Mini Moog down here. I use the Juno 6 and the Jupiter 8 right here. And then I also use the Mini Freak sometimes. I use Pigments all the time. So I'm not going to go into every Arturia plugin, but I'm just going to name them because it's just a group and there's a lot of stuff to get through today. I use this Prophet VS a lot. This is one of my favorite plugins on the system. I used to use this Prophet 5 a lot, but then I got the Take 5 and I realized I like the Take 5 better than I like the Prophet 5 because it's easier for me to use. Not saying it's easier for you to use, But the Prophet 5, the standalone synthesizer, that was always my dream synth. So the first synthesizer I wanted to get was a Prophet 5, but it was too expensive. So then ultimately, I ended up getting the Hydra synth. And then when I got a new synth, I was thinking about getting the Prophet 5, but I got to Take 5 instead. I like this SQ82 as well. And then that's all I use. That's all I use from Arturia. So I use all those plugins though. So like a lot of times when you hear me say the Arturia V collection is worth it, the reason why it's worth it is because there's so many plugins in that bundle that you'll find yourself using, especially if you want to use synthesizers or if you want to use all the augmented stuff to get some brasses, some strings, some choir, different piano sounds, all that different stuff. That's another reason why I would say that the Arturia V collection is like one of the best things that you can get. So then another plugin that I consistently use is Kontakt. I know most of us use Kontakt, but I always use Kontakt for like the guitars. But some of the stuff that I always use, I use 40's own drums. I use Alicia's keys. I use Analog Dreams. I use Bouquet. I use this Chromona a quartet ensemble. I typically use Ignition keys. I use Kithara. My favorite plugin, my favorite libraries are like this Electric Sunburst Deluxe and this upright bass. So every when you hear me play guitars, like something like this or something like this, that's like my favorite guitar that I use. I also use the Electric Mint from time to time, and I use Zhang Quinn. So I use like a lot of different libraries in Kontakt, and that's kind of where you guys hear a lot of my sounds and stuff like that come from. And then a plugin that's going to get me a lot of flack, but I don't really care because this is the plugins that I use. You know what I'm saying? Is this Life? I know when Life came out, people gave it a lot of grief. You know what I'm saying? Because it's just like a, it's just like basically a plugin that remixes things, and it is kind of expensive. But I feel like if you can get it for half off, like whenever it goes on sale for like 75 or 60 bucks or whatever, it's more than worth it. Because you can just randomize whatever perks you have up here. So this is whatever I had in here sounded like. All right, so I didn't prepare this. It's just some random instrument that I had in there last. But then if I remix it, it's gonna sound different. Y'all ain't gonna tell me it just didn't make that sound fire. And then you got variations, pattern variations, and sound variations that you can go through. So for me, with this plugin, what I like to do most of the time is use this for like perk bounces and stuff like that, because I'm not the greatest at putting together perks and all that. I'm not good at that stuff. Like I've been making music forever, and everybody has their weaknesses. And I'll tell you what my freaking main weakness is. My main weakness is going to be, um, just putting together perk rhythms and percussion rhythms and stuff like that. I'm not skilled at that, and I just acknowledge it. So I'm not gonna waste my time if I have a plugin that can put together the perk rhythm for me. So now let's get over into some of these other plugins. Plugins that I'll actually use from over here. I use this bass station since it's come out a little bit, you know what I'm saying? So this plugin right here. Now keep in mind I have a bass station too, so I kind of know how to use this. So I like this bass station. I like the sound that it gives me because it gives me a sound that's similar. It gives me a sound that's similar to. Sorry, my phone's ringing. It gives me a sound that's similar to that bass station too. And since I've had that for over a year and a half, I know how to freak that to get a good bass sound. So I like this bass station too for that reason. Other plugins that I love the Cube still. So this is something that I still use to this day. With the Cube, I typically like to drop samples in here. And then like with this one, it's got evolving samples. So you can put like 4 different sounds on this one. And then you can make the sound travel from here to here to here to here. So when you're playing chords, it really can freak up the way that the sounds sound. And then with each one of the sounds, you can go in there and then you can actually change up how each one of the sounds is mixed and how all the effects and everything like that is on there. Just something that I think is super solid as well. Just a good plugin in my opinion. Another plugin that I consistently use every day, decent sampler. I mean, I have to say decent sampler because to this day, I still use the saxophone from Decent Sampler. I know a lot of you guys know what this is. I still use the tenor saxophone from this. So, you know what I'm saying? This is like my saxophone of choice still. I can't say I use Massive X every day, but what I can say is that I use Massive X now a lot more than I used to. Because now that I'm getting into different kind of sounding music, it's easy to use something like this when I'm making EDM because it's already built for EDM. So I don't use the first Massive. That's not for me. I just don't use it. But I do use Massive X from time to time when I'm making house music. I fuck with Spawn, so I mess with Spawn. Not all the time, you know. I believe in making your own beats and stuff, but sometimes I'll just crack this out if I need to make a beat real quick. I'll pull Spawn open and then I'll get a MIDI from Spawn, you know what I'm saying? Like pick something up, you know, push Spawn or whatever. I didn't change none of this, so whatever it's gonna sound like is gonna sound like whatever it sounds like. But you know what I'm saying? You hit the Spawn button. And then see like that, you have a start of a beat. So that's another plugin that I kind of use and I kind of mess with a little bit. I use Playbeat. Y'all know Playbeat 4 just came out. I'm gonna have a video out on that probably on Thursday. So I'm just not gonna pull this one up because I'm gonna do a full review on it and just kind of show you some of the new things that you could do in Playbeat that are kind of dope. I use this UAD polysynth. So I don't know if y'all remember this was free. I don't know if y'all remember this was free a little bit ago from UAD. Plug in as well. You can get some fire sounds with this. Just very nice. Very nice. Oh, I use the sub a lot. I use this plugin right here still all the time. This is my go-to plugin for like subs because if I'm going to use like a sub plugin that, or if I want my subs, my 808s to have all kinds of bounce and I want my 808s and stuff to like slide, normally I'll use like a sample pack or something like that so I can set up the 808 how I want to. But if I'm just making a regular R&B beat or a lo-fi beat or a boom bap beat, I always use the sub. And then I use just those other synthesizer plugins to make my basses for any kind of house beat or EDM beat or synthwave beat that I would potentially make. Oh, I use Moto Bass all the time too. This is my other one, Moto Bass. You already know I use this all the time for my bass guitar. I use this all the time for bass guitars when I'm using them. This is like my essential. And they have a CS version where you at least just get the 60p bass, but this is my go-to when it comes to bass. And you see I haven't downloaded all the basses on here yet because I just, you know, you see I have a bunch of them. I mean, I have all of them, but it's just each library takes a lot of space up and I have a lot of videos and stuff on my computer. But I love Moto Bass and I also love equally Moto Drum. So I think Moto Drum is a very fire plugin too. Let me find it real quick so I can pull it up for you guys. Yeah, so Moto Drum is fire too. I often use this just for my drums. And the same thing, I haven't downloaded all the drums. I've just downloaded a couple of them, but I don't need them all because what I want to use it for, I'm good with this one library. But I get all the grooves, so I don't have to download all the grooves. I got all the grooves. So, I mean, I got it for what I need it for. So I think that this is a solid plugin too as well. All right, guys. So now I want to kind of switch up and go through some of the effects plugins that I use every single day. You know, because effects are just as important as sound, right? Right. So when it comes to effects, one of my favorite effects is this reverb intensity from Arturia. So again, Arturia has their FX collection along with V collection. So, you know, they have their sounds and then they have their effects. And this is probably my favorite effect from Arturia. Normally it's going to look like this when you open it up. But this is like one of my favorite sounds, you know, like reverb. It just, as soon as you put it on, it automatically sounds good. And really all you have to do is mess with the dry and wet. Because I use this on vocals all the time. Vocals, pianos, guitars. And it sounds good as soon as you open this thing up. It's fire. Another effects plugin that I like is, I like Amplitude 5. I do typically use this too as well. So this is another plugin that I typically use on a, you know, daily basis or whatever the case is. But this is just like an amp for your guitar. And it's got a bunch of good sounds in here. I use this along with Guitar Rig. So if you don't know what Guitar Rig is, I'll pull that up real quick too as well. This is probably my favorite guitar amp just because there's so many different effects in here and there's so much stuff that you can do. It just sounds amazing. You know what I'm saying? And you get like 1,500 different presets down here which you just can't beat, you know? But click on a preset, and then it's got all these different effects chained up for you, and it just sounds absolutely amazing. I love this. I love this. We're talking about every day. I also use crystalline almost every day, just because I can do some pretty cool stuff with this too. So maybe not every day, but like every other day or so. I mean, sometimes I like to switch up my effects just to make the process a little more fun. But I think that's a dope one for me. I also use Cyberdrive. This will surprise some of you guys. So this distortion plugin is pretty solid and it's pretty cheap. It goes on sale a lot for $9, and it's like a it's a 3-stage distortion. No, it's a 4-stage, because here's another stage of it. So it's like a 4-stage distortion plugin that you can add different choruses, rubatos, and stuff like that to it. That's part of my secret sauce right there. Hey, I'm telling you, that's my secret sauce right there. I be using that. I use this distortion Codefire because this is pretty solid too. And it's pretty in-depth because you can hit advanced, and then you can go underneath the hood and you can do a bunch of different stuff with this that makes it pretty solid in my opinion. It's just another one that I use all of the time. So then another one that I use is Knock. I use this like on my drums, so like to parallel process my drums. So if I have like a drum on 3, 4, and 5, then I'll send them out to an insert, like maybe 15, and then I'll put Knock on that and parallel process the drums with this. Just a very solid plugin still, in my opinion. I also use Kickstart too. I use this all the time, and what this does is it basically is a sidechain plugin. So it allows you to sidechain your drums with your 808s, and then it gives you like a good sound. It just helps the kick come through the mix a little bit more and gives you more of that punchy kick to blend with the 808. It basically ducks the beginning signal of the 808 and then lets the kick shine through. So very solid plugin for for your side chaining. Let's see here. Again, I'm not saying these plugins are trash, the ones that I'm not using. I'm just telling you the ones that I use every single day. And I use Infiltrator too. So I'm not gonna lie to y'all though. I don't even think I have Infiltrator on here because I've been using EFX motions and fragments lately. Infiltrator 2 is fire though. If you have Infiltrator 2, you don't need this plugin. But this plugin is fire if you're looking for a substitute maybe for Infiltrator. This does like a lot of the same stuff that Shaperbox will do and that Infiltrator will do. And I used to use Shaperbox every day. I'm not gonna lie to y'all. I don't necessarily use Shaperbox every day anymore because I've just got so many plugins that do the same thing. But it's still a very fire plugin. I use Nectar 3 every day. So I like Nectar 3 over Nectar 4 because I just have my stuff set up, my presets set up. And with Nectar, this is probably gonna make my computer freeze. But I use this on my vocals every day. So like whenever I'm making a video, I always clean my vocals up with Nectar. It's just really easy because I have a preset that I use, and it's just like, bam, slap the preset on there and it's ready to go. So I use that every day. I'm torn because I use Ozone a lot, but I don't really use Ozone that much anymore. I use Masterplan because Masterplan's easier to use and it's easier to control. So Masterplan is a plugin that you can throw in the master of your track and it'll get your sound right really quickly. Just a good effect, just a good master effect. You always got to make sure you got a good mix though before you use Masterplan, because if you have a bad mix, it's just gonna make your mix sound even worse as you try to master. So just something to remember. Oh, I didn't tell you, I'm gonna do one of these two for free plugins. So I've skipped all the free plugins because that list would be too long. So I'm gonna do this again with free plugins as well. I mean, that's about what I use, man. I guess if you want me to be real, other than free plugins, and I'll tell you all the free plugins and the stock plugins another time. But yet, oh yeah, I'm using these UFX plugins too, but I've just did a review on them. I can't say that I'm using them every day yet because I've just been using like UFX filter and reverb over like the last couple of weeks or so. Some hit the key.